femoral side reconstruction, I'll try to put some cases and then we can have some discussion. Today we have got A-grade economy. We have everything available. It wasn't so 20 years ago when I actually started in Bombay. People are affordable, so they can spend money and it is acceptable. A lot of people now. This was a case I came across. When I came, back from England, 1999. This patient was already seen by somebody, operated by this implant, and that was 1999. And 2001, 2 years, this was the situation. The whole thing has disastrously gone wrong. Maybe because if you see previously, very thin bone, very large, and probably it was imported implant where poly was not very good. It was an old poly. Similar another case I saw that time, and these were difficult cases to revise because you have hardly any bone in acetabulum. You require various kind of graft and various kind of implant, which we didn't have much. The best implant which had that time was Esculap, which is a long implant, reasonably good. It had distal interlocking, but it would not serve in all purposes. So when we want to plan any reconstruction, first of all you have to assess how much bone loss is there in the proximal femur. Number two, we have to decide how we remove the implant, as Vijay has mentioned, how do we need osteotomy, etc. And while removal of implant, then how much extra bone will be lost. And then combining two together, we decide what would be the proper classification of that, because the classification will tell you exactly what you need to do. And then you decide what implant will fit into all that so that you can get a stable fixation. And then whole principle is to keep the bone, preserve the bone, not to lose the bone. So there are many classifications, and I like to use this Paprosky, which is relatively very simple. The type 1 and 2 is basically loss in a metaphysis. Type 1 is minimal loss, type 2 is significant loss. Type 3 is the loss goes into the diaphysis, that is below the lesser trochanter. And you can see that diaphysis to the area where the bones start trumpeting out is a cylindrical tube. If it is a proximal 4-5 centimeter, it is type 3A. If it is more than that, up to 5 centimeter, it is type 3B. And if the whole cylinder is completely gone, distorted, enlarged, then it is type 4, which is a very difficult thing to do because none of your many implant will actually have a good fit into that. So to just go back, because it's very important when you try to consider exactly what we want to do, we put two lines. One line at the level of lesser trochanter. Any damage above and nothing below is type 1 or type 2. Type 1 is minimum, type 2 is bigger. Any damage between these two lines is type 3A or 3B. And any damage which involves everything else going down to the bottom is type 4. So basically, if you have an implant which is fixing mainly in the metaphysis, then it will not work in type maybe 2. Type A or type 1, it may still work. Then you need to have implant which goes distally and have a fixation in the medullary cavity. Again, then you have to decide how much distally it has to go based on how much bone loss you expect to happen, either because of primary loss and the loss because of removal of an implant. Because if you take a large osteotomy, that actually has the bone loss. You cannot use that area of an implant or bone for a fixation. You have to think about fixation distal to that. So technically then you may have some amount of minimal loss in a metaphysis, but the way you do trochanteric osteotomy, you have converted that maybe type 1 or 2 into straight away type 3, because you will not use that proximal part for fixation. You have to think about fixation distally to that. So let's take some examples rather than discussing on paper. This is a cemented stem. It has become loose, painful, and when we remove it, there is not going to be much of a bone loss there. And we did what is called as exchange cemented stem. We put a smaller stem. The cement mantle was not too bad. We put another cement, and that is relatively easy option. This was a very old patient, 83-year-old. We didn't want to do any major surgery. So this is, we can put it as a grade 1 because there was no metaphyseal loss, there was no diaphyseal loss, and it is a cement into cement, which is simple thing. If you want to do that reconstruction, then we need to have a good primary cement mantle. You cannot do that if the cement mantle is loose or cracked or having a radiolucent line going down well below the lesser trochanter. Then it has to come out. So it is very good thing. It is excellent. It is described very well. And but only thing is you need to have a thinner and smaller implant. you can use the same company implant and a smaller implant one size, and you can use it. You need a liquid cement to do it. Then this is another case, again cemented cup, a cemented stem. We have got bone cement going almost up to the metaphyseal area, and there we can see that if you remove it, this much amount of bone may be lost, but still I have some amount of bone in a greater trochanter and lesser trochanter, and distally there is not much of a cement, so most of that will come out without a problem. So you can put it as grade 2 maybe, and then all you need to do is something which can fit the metaphysis and have some extension going below the lesser trochanter, so maybe a longer stem. So we use a long non-cemented stem. It is a Corel long non-cemented stem, and it went reasonably very well, so there was no significant problem. There is not much of a bowing there, so you can see that in the lateral view it was fitting not too bad. If you have to use an implant which goes beyond that, if you can see the lateral X-ray, imagine that I had to use an implant maybe another 5 cm beyond that, then it would have touched my anterior cortex and that would have caused a problem. Then we may have to use something like use an extended trochanter osteotomy to reduce the bow and then do some kind of a jugularly there, which was described before. Another case, again, now this is, you can see that there is a loosening around a distal part of a cement, and the cement is going quite distal to the implant. So if you want to remove this implant, there may not be a lot of osteolysis proximally, but when you remove this cement, remove the implant, you are straight away going to get a loss of bone going into the upper part of the diaphysis. So it's going to be now grade 3. Question is A or B, depend on how far down you go. So this is the amount of bone loss which you expect going down below my first vertical horizontal line. So we are looking at an implant which can fit distal to that. So I will need a little longer implant which can have a metaphyseal diaphyseal fit. So again we use Escalap. These are the earlier cases where that was the only implant actually we had. We didn't have a lot of other implants. That was in 1998, 99, 2000. So this implant worked very well. It has got a proximal metaphyseal coating and it has a distal locking implant. So even if you find it is slightly not very good, we can have as large an implant as you can fit proximally, and if you feel the bone is not good, we would lock it distally and it would work reasonably well in most of the cases. Another example, again aseptic loosening cemented THR, and we can see that the bone is going quite far down and the canal is very narrow. Now if you want to go and remove the implant, removal of implant won't be a difficult task in a cemented stem. Cemented stem will just come out by hammering it little hard because they don't stick to the cement. Then removal of that cement, the large amount, if you see the cavity is very narrow and it may not be very easy to go from the proximal end. So much simpler here is, rather than wasting a lot of time trying to do that, to do a long trochanteric osteotomy, whichever way you like depending on your approach, and then remove the distal implant. But when you do the trochanteric osteotomy, you are going down along the shaft. So you are opening the bone. So that bone is like a lost bone. It won't allow you to fix the implant. So now you are again going from a simple thing to grade 3 Paprosky damage, 3A maybe. But the benefit is once you open this, it is not so difficult to remove the remaining cement. You still have got a very large amount of long length of a diaphyseal bone where you can go back and put your primary implant. And as Yuraj has mentioned, it is not necessary to completely close the long trochanteric osteotomy because it's a muscle pedicle graft. You have got a nice vascular muscle attached to that, and the way we approach, we go by posterior approach. So abductors are attached, and if you maintain the lateral vastus lateralis attachment, it's a very muscular and it has got a very good vascularity. So even if it doesn't close completely, because these implants used to be very large implant. The problem in using Indian patient was the proximal diameter of that implant was very large, and it was like a T-shaped implant with a sharp end anteroposterior and mediolateral. And primarily it sometimes used to cause crack in a bone when used to primary. So very rarely you can get a complete closure of the cavity because longer the implant. And another part is these implant, like that's our problem during Indian revision, that the longer the implant are, the broader they become. You don't get smaller and longer implant or a narrower and longer implant. And that's the biggest problem with these all imported system like Wagner, and I think they have come with newer implant. Vijay has designed that, which is smaller than the Wagner and the longer. So that's very important to get a good fit in a small Indian patient. So, and another case, late presentation again. Now here you can see this osteolysis, lot of bone is gone, ballooning of proximal cortex, as we just mentioned initially, it's the late presentation. And when you remove everything else, the whole proximal cortex, including almost significant portion of diaphysis, is gone. So it could be now maybe like grade 3B, where it has gone, and very small amount of distal cortex is remain. So here we used to do a interlocking. So implant doesn't sink in because there is no good proximal fit, and we crack the proximal cortex, wrap it around. We may use even a wire mesh to hold it into position, and then sometimes we used to get a iliac crest graft from the patient, put it there to increase the vascularity of that entire area, and make some bone form. So then you need a wire mesh, allograft, maybe cortical slivers, and a distally locking implant, because if you don't have a good distal cortical fit, that is another problem in Indian. If you are revising a lady, osteoporotic, not working very well because of previous implant not working, it is difficult to get a very rigid cortical fit distally by overrimming, because it's very easy to overrim and break whatever remaining cortex which is there. And in those situations, this locking worked very well with us, because if you see there is a significant amount of gap here. It is not distally fitting by a cortical edge-to-edge fit. It is there only because of the locking screw. Of course, we have to keep this patient non-weight bearing for a long period, let the whole soft tissue and implant heal, and then allow them to walk. Because if that is not done, if you are very rapid in mobilization, even this screw will break, because there are only 2 screws. And this exactly happened in some of the implant. See this? Now, this is just another case. I'll finish within a couple of cases now. This is a lot of bone loss. Which implant will you, how do you classify that? Anybody? 3A, yes, 3A, maybe 3B, depending on, you need to have long length, whole length femur to see how much distal, you have to have a full length femur film. And once you remove it, how much would that be? And then we can use an implant which goes beyond that. Just last case, this is what I was telling about. If this implant was very good, locking usually used to work, but if you load them early, and if the proximal bone graft doesn't heal, the whole thing can shatter and collapse down, and then the whole implant will break. That's a situation where the entire cortex is gone, and all you is a balloon cortex. You can see that, and this is the implant called Reef. You must have seen that. Only problem was it's a very bulky implant. It's difficult to use in a small female patient, but in a balloon cortex, maybe you can still use it. We use that. You can see that there is a lot of bone. We kept the entire bone sleeve. When you do this, even if the proximal bone is not healed, do not remove that bone, because a lot of soft tissue is attached to that. So we maintain the proximal bone, whatever is there, put the implant which is fully porous coated, let it heal in the distal part, and it has got a distal locking. So, and hope that the bone grows. You can see that in the right side picture, the bone has grown in the distal part, and the proximal part, maybe it's just a soft tissue healing. There may or may not have been any bone ingrowth directly from the soft tissue on the surface of an implant. If it is there, well, it's very good. So basically, one point before I close is, when we talk about these revisions and assess the actual implant and loss and classification, you always underestimate the amount of bone loss by X-ray, because on the table when you open and you start removing the osteolysis, you find suddenly a huge defect. So you always remember that you have to plan for the classification more than what you think it is required, and maybe a CT scan can help, because that can actually tell you how much osteolysis is there around the implant and distal to the implant. So I think I'll stop here, because I have finished more than my time. Thank you.